Would you like to purchase the entire order? And I looked at her and I said, yes, miss, the entire order. She said, okay. Short time elapsed. She opened the window, and she stuck out her hand. She goes, sir, I looked up. She goes, that'll be $27.85. I said, what? She goes, well, sir, you said the entire order. Now check this out. I look in the rearview mirror to see who I'm buying for, and I see this big F-150 work truck. You know the kind I'm talking about? These big F-150 work trucks. And in the front row, there's these guys, and they're hacking cigarettes, and they got these big beards. And in the back row, same thing, guys smoking Darbies, and they got these big beards. And the little guy on my shoulder said, you also said 100%. I was like, I know what I said. Looks like I'm paying Visa. So I pay for the order. I paid for the order. At the time, I was a single guy. I was working as a teacher, and I thought to myself, not a big deal. I'm not going to have a large pizza today. Not a big deal. I'm going to let you in a little secret. I am an awkward man. All of you in this room are probably thinking that's not a secret. But when I'm in front of you, I feel comfortable. I feel at home. I feel at ease. When I talk one-on-one, I talk even faster than I talk now. I stammer over my words. I overthink things. And so when someone says thank you, what's a common response? You're welcome. Just like that song would suggest from Moana. You're welcome. That's a great movie. Don't you dare tell me it's not. My daughter's 5. We watch it every day, as I mentioned. Anyway, you're welcome. So I'm not very good. So here's the thing. I'm not very good at saying you're welcome. When someone says thank you, I kind of get all Walking Dead-ish, and they get all weird, and I get weird, and I wish I didn't do it. So I like to do things anonymously. So I pay for the order thinking I'd never see them again. I was wrong. Here's the story, my friends. I'm in my little car, as I mentioned, and I pull out, and I'm getting ready to go to work. It's about 5:30 in the morning. I'm an early riser, and I'm at this red light, and I'm getting ready to turn left in my little car. When this truck that I bought for comes in behind me, and they come in hot. They are beeping the horn. They're like, thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. And I look in the rearview mirror, and I'm like, not a problem. Please stop beeping the horn. This is embarrassing. But that wasn't good enough for them, so they put it in reverse, and I'll never forget. The guy puts it in reverse, and he pulls in beside me. He goes, wind down your window. And his buddy's crawling over top of him. He's like, wind down your window, man. I remember looking at him being like, not necessary, bud. We're good. But he wasn't having it. He wasn't having it at all. So finally the window goes down, and he starts to yell at me. He's got this cigarette in his mouth that looked like a little rat tail, and it was just like, and he's like, thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. And the whole time that he was talking, I'm staring at him like this. Because I'm thinking to myself, how the heck is that staying in his mouth? Now, I'm not a smoker. I never have been because it's disgusting. Other than that, there's lots of reasons. Oh, actually, I didn't mean to offend. Actually, I don't care if I offend you. Smoking's disgusting. And if we have time, I'll tell you a little bit why later on in the show. But anyway, he's staring at me, and he's yelling out the window with this little rat tail cigarette going up and down. He's like, thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. I'm staring at him like this. And again, I'm not very good at saying you're welcome. And so he continues to talk, and he stops. And I'm staring at him. He doesn't know what I'm thinking, but I'm trying to think of how it's staying in his mouth. He stops. I figure it's my turn to speak. And I pause. I remember looking at him, and I'm just like this. Okay, guys. It gets better. And I look at the side of the truck, and it says construction. And it just came to my head. I'm like, okay, guys. Keep on constructing things. Did you catch the wink? I don't know if you caught, but like, I was literally keep on constructing, and then I went. Like a grown man, you should never be winking at other grown strangers. I mean, you shouldn't wink at kids either, but reality is that it's just so creepy. I was literally like, okay, and I give him that and the wink, and I'll never forget his response. It was great. He just goes, looks at his buddy, goes, all right, man, we'll keep on constructing things. And I'm just like, that was my cigarette. Anyway, I keep on constructing. I'm just thinking, just say you're welcome. For the love of goodness, say you're welcome. Guy behind him, wind down your window. Like behind him, he's like, wind down your window. I look over my right shoulder. I'm like, this is the longest red light of my life. So I look over my right shoulder, and he goes, hey, man, we've had a horrible week, an absolute horrible week, and that gesture made it better. Thank you. And for once in my life, I got it right, and I simply said, you're welcome. And the light turned green. I never saw him again. Thank goodness for that. My young friends, I'm telling you this story for 2 reasons. One, I hope none of you have to purchase $30 Tim Hortons orders for strangers. Or for your friends, for that matter. If your friend, that's awful. If your friends, hey, I'm going to Tim Hortons. Hey, here's an order, $40 later. But the second and most important reason why I'm telling you this story is because it took me 31 years to figure it out. It took me 31 years to figure out what I'm trying to get you to understand today. Is that what they felt by my gesture of giving failed in comparison to how I felt by actually doing it. What they felt by my gesture of giving failed in comparison to how I felt by actually doing it. Trust me, when I sat in your seats at your age, I was me, me, me. Mine, 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 get. All I wanted was things for myself. And then I realized in my 31st birthday that I receive way more when I start to give. And if you can remember that every single day is an opportunity to give, we live to the lessons that we learn, and we live to the service that we provide for others, the value that we provide for others. And if you could do that on a continuous basis and give people your time, effort, whatever case, you're so far ahead. You are so far ahead than I ever was at your age. Give yourself a round of applause. You guys are great. It doesn't matter why you give, my young friends. What matters is that you do. Oftentimes people will say people give, they give selflessly. They give because it's the right thing to do. Not me. I give selfishly. I literally feel good about myself to give you a compliment. You're putting on a heck of a program today. All you people that were in here practicing on the stage, you guys were amazing. I give selfishly. It really makes me feel to give teachers compliments, to give everybody, people in my life compliments, make them feel better about themselves. Doesn't matter why you give, it just matters that you do. And I'll continue to say this. Here's the thing that you need to understand, my young friends. In life, don't be afraid to make mistakes. I get it. You have a lot of pressures going on. There's a lot of things coming at you. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I have a daughter. She's not the mistake. Really need to preface that a little better, I think. But when my wife told me we were going to have a baby, I was thrilled. I was thrilled, but I was scared. Now, I wasn't scared to make sure that my daughter had a roof over her head or clothing on her back or food in her belly. You know what I was scared of more than anything? Bathing her. Kids are greasy. They are slippery when they're wet. There are people in this room, the guy's father's like, yeah, man, no, he's got a point. He's got a point. 3.5 weeks after this little ball of awesome was born, I had a contractual obligation to fly to New York City to speak. The only time in my life that I absolutely hated my job. And so when I got there, my wife said to me, she said, don't worry about it, Nick. You'll be gone for 26 hours. It's fine. You're good to go. We've got lots of help. So I flew to New York. I spoke in the morning and I spoke in the afternoon. What happened to me in New York is one of the reasons why I was invited to this beautiful school to present today, and I'll speak to that in a moment. So as I'm sitting there and I'm doing my speech, I'm coming back and I'm thinking of many things, and I get to my house. Now, I don't know if anybody's been around newborn babies lately, but when a newborn baby is brought into the world, people like to gravitate towards that house. And I know that because my house was full of people I don't know. And they're all passing Bryn around like she's a little football. I mean, they're not throwing her, but you get what I mean. And so they pass Bryn around, and I know I got to face my fear. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. So I grab Bryn, and I walk up the stairs with her. Now, it's funny. When a new dad walks up the stairs with a brand new baby, the entire household will follow that dad up the stairs. I know that because that's what happened to me. So I'm on the stairwell, and I'm looking down, and my wife's looking up, leading the way, goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm bathing Bryn. Collectively, everybody goes, ooh, do you think that's a good idea? In my head, I was like, absolutely not. But I got to do it. I said, yes, it's going to be fine. So here's the story. I fill up the water basin because I know you can't throw a baby in a bathtub. You shouldn't throw a baby anywhere. So I throw up the water basin, or I fill up the water basin, and it does not go well for me. I'm trying to keep her head above water because babies can't breathe underwater. You should know that. And I'm taking the shampoo, and I'm putting it all over her, and it's splashing everywhere, and then I hear this one coming up the stairs. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, mercy me. Please do not be your mom. Please do not be your mom. There's a knock on the door. With hesitation, I say, who is it? The door opens. It's my wife's sister, my sister-in-law. The only time in my life I was actually thrilled to see her. Is that too much? You have never met her. She's a dragon. No, anyway. So she comes in, and she was awesome. She walks in. She's like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I said, help me. She rolls in. She raised 3 kids on her own, and she is awesome at doing that. So she starts to bathe Bryn, and she knows how she's doing. I'm behind her. I'm like, yeah, Aaron, good job. I'm an excitable guy. She's looking over. She's like, okay, Nick, turn it down a little bit. But I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I asked for help. I'm feeling pretty good. I got a pretty good understanding. So I say to Aaron, I got this. She's like, are you sure? And I'm like, all I have to do is dry her off. We're good to go. She said, okay, if you need me, just holler. I said, not necessary, but thank you. So I look down at Bryn. She's 3.5 weeks. I'm looking down at her. She's looking up at me. And I said, Brynny, Daddy's going to pick you up and put you in this towel. And as I pick her up, she moves. Dropped her. I know. I love telling this story. It doesn't matter if I'm on the East Coast or West Coast. Everybody's like, oh! Last week, some kid in Alberta's like, you're the worst dad ever. To which I humbly replied, I'm like, no, worst dad wouldn't pick her back up. I immediately picked her back up. However, it's hilarious. You drop a 3-week-old, they're literally like, now she's 5 when I drop her. She's just like, ugh, idiot. Get mom. So I dry her all off. I throw a little baking powder on her, and I give her a baby powder. This is going off the rails here. I give her back to her mother. Her mother says, how'd it go? And I said, it went great, Brooke. I never want to talk about it ever again. But the next time went a little better. And the next time after that went a little better still. Listen, I recognize this story is primitive. I understand that. It's that way by design. But what I also want you to understand is don't be afraid to take that step. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't be afraid in doing so to ask for help. What happened to me in New York changed my life. What happened to me in New York is the reason why I've dedicated most everything that I do in my existence to this day. I flew in at night, I spoke in the morning, and I spoke in the afternoon. And as I was waiting for the car service to come pick me up to take me back to the airport so I can be reunited with my beautiful little family, I was sitting in the hotel restaurant area having a drink and something to eat when I overheard a conversation that went like this. Two guys. Now I'm going to paraphrase this because I don't use this kind of deplorable or discriminatory language to describe little kids or anybody. First guy. My daughter's in a class with a bunch of kids, and some of those kids have severe learning disabilities. And if I had it my way, I would take those kids out of my daughter's class so that the way they do things doesn't impede on my daughter's education. I honestly feel like she's probably going to get more stupid because these kids are in her class. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Trust me, I'm paraphrasing it when I tell you this. I thought the guy that he was talking to would have said exactly what you would have said. What everybody in this teachers, all your teachers and family and friends hopefully would have said, and said, maybe we should change the subject because clearly you have no idea what you're talking about. But he didn't. All he did was echo it. He just said, yeah, I hear you, man. My daughter's in a class with a bunch of kids, and the teacher continues to partner up my daughter with this kid using a wheelchair. And because he does things at such a slow pace, I feel it's impeding on my daughter's education as well. And if I had it my way, I would do the exact same thing. Get him out of that class, throw away the key. Now, I don't know if you've ever felt so bad or felt so angry at something you start to well up a little bit. I've never in my life heard such discriminatory and deplorable language, especially to describe little kids. So I couldn't even wait for the bill. I just paid for my order and stood out in the rain. See, what they didn't recognize, what they didn't realize, that sitting within earshot of their conversation sat a man who became the proud father of a beautiful baby girl who has the ability to make me a better man simply by being alive. The moment Bryn was born, I became better. The moment that Wells was born, my son, I became better still. Have I made mistakes? Absolutely, we all do. That's living. What they didn't recognize, that sitting within earshot of their conversation sat a man who became the proud father of a beautiful baby girl who has the ability to make me smile simply by entering a room. The best part of my day is when I get home from work and they're still awake, they come around the corner, they're like, Daddy, Daddy. It's a lot cuter when a 4-year-old does it, okay? They're like, he's coming in hot. What they didn't realize, what they didn't recognize, that sitting within earshot of their conversation sat a man who became the proud father of a beautiful baby girl who has the ability to make me cry simply by smiling. I'll never forget, Grace, the first time that I saw her smile. I came home from a business trip and I was changing her diaper. She looked up at me and she began to smile. And I immediately started to cry. I couldn't even control it. I was like bawling. I yelled for my wife, Brooke, get in here. She comes running in. I'm like, she's smiling. At the time, Brooke was on maternity. She goes, they do that. I can't make this up. This is my house, guys, people. I said, what is this salty substance coming out of my eyes? She goes, those are tears, Nick. Welcome to having a heart. Anyway, I digress. But my point is at that point, I realized that I had to do something. What they didn't realize, what they didn't recognize, is that sitting within earshot of their conversation sat a man who became the proud father of a beautiful baby girl that does all those things, that was born 3.5 weeks earlier and shortly after identified with a condition known as Down syndrome. So you can imagine how I felt when I heard such awful, discriminatory, deplorable language to describe little kids. You know what's funny? I don't know how many times a year I do these speeches, maybe 100, maybe more. And up until recently, I used to say diagnosed. Diagnosed would insinuate that my beautiful daughter is sick. Diagnosed would insinuate that something is wrong with her. She's identified with. Bryn is healthy. She's beautiful. She's funny. She's loving. She's energetic. She's spirited. She's annoying. What 5-year-old isn't? And her, along with her 18-and-a-half-month-old brother, are the best part of my day. My young friends, as we look around, we come from all kinds of different backgrounds. What I want you to understand is that we can all either sit down or sit back and not do anything, sit on our chair and do nothing when we hear discriminatory or deplorable language, or we can act. We can do something. Now, I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea that I was going to do, but I had an idea that I had to do something. And at that moment, I decided that I was going to start Move for Inclusion. It was funny. I remember I thought about it for like 18 months. I kept it in. In fact, I didn't even tell my wife what happened to me. I had to do something. And at that moment, I realized that I was going to start Move for Inclusion, that I was going to ride my bike from BC to St. John's. Talk about inclusion and acceptance of all people. I remember I told my best friend, we were sitting on our stationary bikes at the YMCA before we were going to work, and I said, Ben, this is what I want to do, man. I want to ride my bike and I want to talk every other day about the importance of inclusion and acceptance of all people. I'll never forget my friend Ben's response. He said, cool, man. That's really great. Quick question for you, Nick. I said, sure. He goes, I've known you for 35 years. I said, yeah. He goes, I have never seen you ride a bike, let alone own a bike. How are you going to do this? I said, good point. Here's what you need to understand. Look at me. Here's what you need to understand. If your why is big enough, your how every single time will show up. In life, if your why is big enough, your how will show up. I wrote what I thought was a well-versed letter, and I gave it to a bike shop owner. I didn't email it to him. I didn't text him. I didn't phone him. I gave him the letter because I wanted to make sure that he read that letter in front of me, and if he was going to say no, he was going to say it to my face. I wanted this so bad, I stared at him. He read the letter, and it went something like this. He goes, let me get this straight, young man, as he's reading the letter. And I'm staring at him, and he goes, you want me to give you a free bike? I said, yes, sir, that one right there. He goes, right, the most expensive one in my shop. I said, yes. He goes, and you're going to ride it across the second largest landmass in the world, stopping every other day to talk about the importance of inclusion and acceptance of all people without bias. Do I have that correct? I said, yes. And you have zero riding experience. And I went, he goes, other than you are going to train real hard for 18 months. I said, yes, sir. He goes, do I have that right? And he goes, I go, yes, I do. And he looked me dead in the eye, and I'll never forget, he looked at me, and he goes, young man, do you honestly think this is a good business investment for me? And I remember looking right in the eye and lying and being like, yes, sir, I do. He paused for a second, and he goes, yeah, me too. Come back tomorrow, and I'll give you the bike. Now, you're probably all thinking, wow, you must have been excited. Nope, I walked out of there, and I was like, oh, man, now I got to do it. And I was looking for inspiration everywhere that I can find it, and I found it in you. I found it in the work that I do. I found it in my little Bryn. I found it in all those people, everybody that doubted us. I find it in all these different things that we do in our existence. And I remember coming across a great story. I remember coming across a great story on the internet about a guy named Cliff Young. And in 1981, at 67 years old, Cliff Young, who was a shepherd in Australia, decided he was going to run in arguably the longest race on the planet, from Sydney to Melbourne. So he went to the race official. At 67, he went to the race official and he said, excuse me, ma'am, I'd like to join the race. She said, sir, you're wearing rubber boots and a tilly hat. And he goes, miss, the rubber boots keep my feet dry and the tilly hat keeps the sun off my head. She said, do you have any running experience? He said, well, I am a shepherd, and oftentimes the sheep will leave the flock, and I have to spend days running after them, but I always catch them. She goes, sir, look who you're going against. And he looks over at the starting line, and everybody's sitting there, and they're all in their Nike and Adidas, and they're stretching. And she goes, those are professional runners, and they're half your age. He said, if it's all the same to you, ma'am, I'd like to try. She said, okay, sign the waiver, pay your fee, and that's what he did. And he went over to the starting line. Everyone started to laugh at him. 67, 81, 1981, he had no business being there. The gun went off to start the race, and everybody started to run, and Cliff Young started to run. You can look this up, just like this. It's called the Cliff Young Shuffle. And he started to run, and as you can imagine, at this pace, when he got to the first checkpoint, everybody was gone home. All the racers that he was racing against were sleeping in their tents. All the race officials and the audience, everybody was gone. So Cliff just looked around. Cliff just looked around because nobody told old Cliffy boy, you're supposed to run for 18 hours and sleep for 6. So he just continued to run into the Australian night, just like this. Now, the next day, when he was going against people, everybody got up. All of the racers that he was going against got up, and they looked around. Hey, what happened to Cliff Young, I wonder? Some people thought he quit. Some people thought worse. They had no idea that they were running for second place. Not only, my young friends, did Cliff Young win the race, he won it by 11 hours. 67 years old. He won it by 11 hours. Look at me. Don't you dare. Don't you dare ever allow another person who hasn't done it tell you that it can't be done. You understand me? Never allow a person who hasn't done it tell you that it can't be done. You take that step. If your why in life is big enough, your how every single time will show up. Start where you are and start today. Take that step. Give yourself a round of applause. You guys are too great. I love this. I love you. Was that aggressive? I love you too. That's how I married my wife. First date, I was like, I love you. I wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't say that you guys should do that, but I led with Trump. I love you. She's like, you love me? I'm like, anyway, it worked out. We got married. All right. People ask all the time, I'd like to start, but I don't know where to. I don't know where to start. Start where you are, as I mention all the time. This picture was taken just after a ride from Brooks, Alberta. I remember speaking to an audience, and this young kid comes up to me, grade 7. He comes up to me. He's a spirited young guy. His name was Michael. And he looked at me, and he's got these big Coke bottle glasses. He was just short. And he goes, Mr. Foley, sir. I said, yes. He goes, I liked your speech. I got a couple quick questions for you. I said, sure, young man. He goes, where does all the money go that people donate to you on the ride? I said, well, all the money goes to charity. All the money, 100%, goes to inclusion charities for children. Best Buddies was our major charitable partner that we donated to. And he said, awesome. This is what he says after that. He goes, well, then how do you subsidize the ride? I remember looking at him and being like, where'd you come up with that word? So after I looked it up, no, I'm just kidding. I said to him, that's done through sponsorships and things of that nature. And I'll never forget, if you don't think you can leave an impact in this world, listen to this. He put his hand in his pocket, and he takes out $1.40. He said, Mr. Foley, sir? I said, yes. And he goes, it's not much, but it's all I have. Can I give this to you so you can give it to charity so that kids like me can feel more included? I remember looking down at him being like, I think I can do that, man. Here's the thing, my friends, is that I honestly want you to understand how much I value your efforts and time to be here today. And I want you to say this. I want to say this to you because here's what I think in my life is I'm not too worried about if you're influenced on my words. And you know what? Hopefully you are. Maybe you're inspired for the day, and that's great. Go out and act. But the reason why I think I'm worthy of your time is because I try. I try. People ask me all the time, how do you do these things? How do you start? Where do you start? You start where you are, and you do little things, and you continue to build momentum. I'm an entrepreneur. This is a company, one of the companies that I started called Celebrate the Hero. And it's an online company for little kids on bullying and based on a book that I wrote. We're moving into mentoring and things of that nature. Move for Inclusion is now a nonprofit that I started. You guys know the story behind that. We actually have a chapter at St. Mary's University, so whoever's going to the Huskies next year, join. It's ran by a powerhouse of an individual, Hannah Steenberg. She's there in the volleyball team running a great program there. We have a chapter at the college in which I teach at. And hopefully we're going to grow across this country. You know the story as to why it started. Good Sport is another organization I just started in October with a group of great people, based for athletes, by athletes, for athletes, to talk about character education. For Them Clothing, we're actually going through a name change, but the reality of that program is simple. You buy a toque, you buy a pair of socks or a pair of underwear, and we donate it to our homeless shelters that we're partnered with across the country. People ask, how do I get started? Tag, Think, Act, Give. Join the club, the 100 Club. All you have to do is go to Facebook. You can look and see how to do it. Start where you are. Think, act, give. It's that simple. You simply go to these different places, or you can go and think about what you want to do. I went to a school the other day, not too long ago, and they asked her, well, we want to donate 100 toothbrushes. They ended up raising 300 toothbrushes, and they sent them to different parts of the country, or different parts of the continent. Another school wanted to raise scarves, so they had a football game, and at the football game, they got everybody to donate scarves. They raised 146 different scarves, and they sent it to different shelters that they wanted to partner with. Start where you are. Because here's what I've learned about your generation, is that your generation, from the ages of like 14 to 30, it's a huge demographic, but your generation, more so than any generation before you, has concentrated very hard on being recognized for the lifestyles that you want to lead and the experiences that you want to garner. And because of this, I believe the influencers in your life, your guardians, teachers, coaches, parents, people of influence, we need to concentrate less on telling you what you can be when you leave this beautiful school and concentrate more on allowing you to become exactly who you are while you're in this beautiful school. Yeah, you can applause that, absolutely. Don't be shy, I love it. Be who you are and allow that to come out in how you live. Do you understand me? I'm going to say this one more time. Look at me. Be unapologetically who you are and allow that to come out in how you live. Mike was unapologetic about who he is. Mike was the best guy that I know. He was one of the best. He's one of the greatest people I've ever met. Mike was just like Brad. He was a rugby star. He was about 6'3" and could run like the wind. He had a football scholarship to St. Mary's. He was great, but he ended up quitting and joining the rugby team. I remember Mike one day. He's a year ahead of me. He was doing his master's, his MBA. And we were at the gym, we were working out, doing our thing. I was a two-semester athlete on the hockey team, so I had to be back to Halifax early. And I was trying to sweat out all the turkey and stuff that I had when I was away at Christmas. And we were working out, doing our thing at the tower. And I remember Mike saying to me, he looking at me, and he wasn't himself. And he's saying to me, I just don't feel right. I said, you all right, man? He said, yeah, I'll be okay. So we did our thing, and we were going through the motions, I guess. And I said, hey, Mike, do you want to come down and hang out with us today? We're just going to hang out at the house where we all lived. He didn't live with me, but he hung out with a lot of my friends on the hockey team. He said, we're just going to watch the hockey game, that's it. He said, yeah, man, I'll do that. So we started walking. We started walking down the street, and we got to halfway to where we were going. We stopped at a red light. Mike wasn't saying anything, but I wanted him to know that I was there. So I was like, Mike, if you ever need to talk, man, I'm here. He said, thanks. He paused for a second. The light turned green, and just as I was ready to step, Mike put his hand on my chest, and he goes, Foles. I remember looking up at him, and he goes, I've got some things on my mind, man. I said, sure, Mike, what is it? He goes, I just want you to know that over the holidays, I came out to my sisters and my mom, and I'm gay. I remember looking at him. This happened in 2004. Light turned green, and I continued to walk. Didn't say anything. I walked in silence. We got to the next light. Mike said to me, hey, man, are you going to say something? I said, yeah, man, I'm sorry. He goes, you're sorry that I'm gay? I'm going to kick your... I said, no, Mike. I'm sorry that you have been in the room, and I've used unbelievably discriminatory and deplorable language to describe things I didn't like. I'm sorry that you've been in the rooms when I said things like, that's so gay. I'm sorry that I've used homophobic slurs. Mike looked at me, he goes, man, you're my best friend. I know you mean no malice by it. I said, Mike, it's a learned behavior, and if you can learn it, you sure the heck can unlearn it, and I apologize. He looked at me and he goes, I want to tell the boys tonight, what do you think? I said, let's find out. So we're at the hockey house, we're at this little house in which we all lived, and we're sitting on those disgusting couches, teachers in the room. You know the ones I'm talking about, where they're like flea infested, you're walking home, it's pouring rain, you're like, free couch, right? And you pick it up and you throw a sheet on it, you're good to go. Trust me, you guys will get it. And we're sitting around on these disgusting couches, and I have control of the converter. And I hit mute, and I said, boys, Mike's got something to say. I remember Mike getting up, goes, guess I'm doing it today. Okay, all right, fools. So he stands up. I don't know what it would be like for him, but he stood up in front of this room full of the hockey guys that he hung out with, that he was friends with for 4 or 5 years. He said, boys, I just want you to know that over the holidays, I just told Nick, and I want you to be the first to know, that over the holidays, I came out to my sisters and my mom, and I want you to know that I'm gay. I will never forget my friend's response, Delaney. He goes, cool, man, pass the chips. Right? I thought that was a great response. So I was like, pass the man the chips. So we gave him the chips, we went on our day and what have you. Mike left, some of the guys left, and it was Dell and I just sitting around. I said, Dell, that was a great response. Dell says to me, he goes, Mike's a great man. He's like, I met him 5 years ago, and he brings more joy to my life than many people do. I learned from him so many things. Doesn't matter to me if he's gay, straight, bisexual, it doesn't matter. I've learned a lot from him. And you know what? He was right. Here's what I've learned in my life, my young friends, and here's what I want you to understand. Most of you, I'm sure, probably already know this, is that we come from this unbelievably diverse ideological and cultural mosaic of many different people going in many different directions. I mean, take a look around. And as such, not one person in this room, not one person in this community, not one person in this great country and we call home should ever in their life ever feel devalued or discriminated against because of their ethnicity, their ideology, their sexual orientation, their gender, whether they're male, female, non-binary, the person that they love, their ethnicity, or the pronoun they decide to identify with. Give yourself a round of applause, my friends. Be exactly who you are. Be exactly who you are and allow that to come out in how you live and be unapologetic about it. And if you're ever feeling at a point in your life that you don't have anything, that you feel that you can't be yourself, I'm going to tell you this. You need to understand this. You need to talk. And for those people that have the privilege of being able to hear someone talk, you have one job, and your job is this: listen. That's it. This is what I know about mental health. I remember when my friend Brad, as I mentioned, when he passed away, I had a real struggle with it. I was going through a real difficult time. I know my cousin Kathy was here with me. She's actually in the audience. Go family. And she was helping me get through this difficult time, and I was doing things that weren't becoming of myself. And you know one thing that she did more so than anybody else in my life at the time? She listened. She was unjudgmental, and she listened. And I remember at this one particular time, I was in teacher's college. I was having a bad day. And my friend Ambrose, he's from Stellarton, New Brunswick. My friend Ambrose came down, and he said, "What's wrong with you, man?" I said, "It's a year anniversary of Brad's death." And he sat in my living room for 11 hours as I sat there and yammered on about the great things that Brad and I did together playing hockey for 4 years. And he didn't say one word. All he did was listen. Here's what you need to understand. You matter. Here's what you need to get. On those days where you're not feeling like yourself, you need to understand that there are people out there that want to connect with you. You have to reach out. You owe that to yourself. Please, I'm begging you, I'm telling you, you have to reach out. Reach out to somebody. And if you feel that there's nobody in your life right now that you can reach out to, then reach out to me. I've got nothing but time. I love you. That is aggressive. The more I say it, the more aggressive I feel that it is. Honestly, I have like 7 or 8 followers on Instagram. You can just I know you when you text me or when you Instagram me. I get them. I don't have a lot of followers, and that's a good thing because all of a sudden I can respond. If you're not feeling like yourself, reach out. I don't care. I will take that. You need to understand that you matter. Give yourself a round of applause. This is great. You know what I'm thinking about right now is my mom. I don't know if anybody has a mom like me. She's like really small. I mean, she's taller than that, but she's like this big. And she's got this amazing voice. Like, she's just like right out there, like, Nicholas, I love you. I love everything. Like, that's the person she is. She's a lot like Karen's mom, I think, right? Kathy. So anyway, so she's that kind of person. She's just really energetic and high energy, and I love her for it. And she tries to follow me like around, like not like she doesn't like literally try to follow me around. I'm like, Mom, get away from me. Like, she doesn't do that. But like, she follows me around on social media and stuff. She's one of the smartest ladies I ever met, but she is awful at like texting and social media and acronyms and things. I'll give you an example. About 8 or 9 years ago, I was living in Europe, and my mom used to text me all the time. And she'd be like, Nick, I heard the weather in England right now is awful. I was living in Britain. She goes, I heard the weather in England is awful. LOL. So I'd respond, I'd be like, yep, weather sucks. Ha ha ha. Not really sure why that's funny, but I'd hit send. One time she sent me a message. She said, Nick, bad news. Scruffy the dog died. LOL. Right? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, my mom, is she a sociopath? Like, I love that dog. So I respond back. I'm like, okay, Mom, sorry to hear about Scruff. Send, no LOL. Anyway, I get back, and my grandmother, my Nana, she's since passed, bless her heart, but she was like 93, really old. My mom sends me a text message one day. Nick, bad news. Grandma fell down and broke her face. LOL. So I'm like, okay, now she's really... So I phoned my mom, right? I phoned her. She's beside herself. She's like, Nicholas, I just have no time to talk. I said, good question. Quick question, though, for you, Mom. What does LOL mean? She's like, sweetheart, I have no time for this. I go, just quickly tell me what LOL means. She's like, everybody knows that LOL means lots of love. I paused for a second. I was like, Mom? She goes, yes. I go, LOL means laugh out loud. She goes, oh... And I go, what? She goes, I sent that message to your father. I remember laughing and be like, you got some explaining to do. But the best part was, not too long ago, I think it was like last November or whatever, one of my programs that I was telling you about, CelebrateTheHero.com, it's a children's book, and it was made into an animated, kind of story, and we're really excited about it. So I sent my mom a text. I'm on a plane getting ready to fly out to Edmonton, Alberta last September. I send my mom this message. I go, Mom, this is what's happening. She writes back. I'm on the plane. She writes back, WTF. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. So I couldn't let this fester for 3 hours, right? I had to know exactly what she meant. So I phoned my mom. Mom, literally the flight attendant's like, sir, you got to get off the phone. I'm like, I know, sir, I will, but I got to hear this. Mom, she's like, Nicholas, I'm so excited. I go, what does WTF mean? She goes, oh, honey, everybody knows what that means. I go, what? She goes, wow, that's fantastic. I don't know if you've ever laughed so hard at something that you can't make the noise. You know what I mean? I'm just like... And I'm killing myself. I'm laughing so much. I'm just like, oh my goodness. And then she paused for a second. She goes, oh, did I mess it up like the LOL thing? And I'm like, nope, you nailed it. A couple weeks later, my sister's like, has Mom been WTFing you? The reason why I don't smoke, other than it's disgusting, is it was brought to my attention a couple Christmases ago that my mom sat me down before I went to like kindergarten. Clearly, I can't remember this, but she sat me down, and apparently it went like this. Nicholas, don't smoke. Okay, she goes, because if you do, you will die. That's aggressive, right? And I was like, okay. And I was like, cancer, diseases? She's like, nope, instantly. And I question a lot of things, right? So I was like, come on, that can't be true. She's like, yep, don't blame me, blame your father. It's a genetic thing on your father's side. If a cigarette hits your little lips, dead. Now you're laughing, but I believe that. Like, that can't be true. She's like, do you remember your great uncle Mike? And I said, no. She goes, exactly. My whole career, I did not. Like, I was just like so petrified of it. I was in grade 9, I'm in high school, and I'm walking through the smoking section to walk to my parents' store, and literally some kid's like, Foley, want a cigarette? I was like, no, I'll die! And I'm like running. I never know if you're laughing at me or my running stride. I don't know. Both. I'm a heel runner, not shy to admit it. I get to my dad's store, my mom's there, and I'm stuck in pond water. I'm so out of shape. I'm like, and I was like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. Some kid offered me a cigarette. She's like, you didn't take it, did you? I'm like, well, no, Mom. I'm standing here, aren't I? She's like, that's my boy. Some of you are probably wondering, maybe it's teachers, I don't know. Maybe some of you are wondering, why are you telling us this story? Where's the message behind it? There's no message. I told you this story because it's funny. It made me laugh to think about. We were going through some heavy things, and it made me laugh to talk about it. So I wanted to share it with you today. Listen. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know what's going on in your existence. That would be very naive for me to do. In fact, when I was your age, I didn't have all these different things that were going on with social media and things of that nature. Nobody did. You've got a lot of pressures on you, and I recognize that, and I understand that. And like I said, you do matter, and you are worthy, and you do have people in your life that love you. But if you know what, from time to time, if watching cat videos on YouTube is going to make you feel pretty good about yourself, then you have my permission to do it. If it's a 5-hour shift, then go ahead. Well, not 5 hours, but you get the picture. You matter. Give yourself a round of applause, yeah. How much time do you have? 5 minutes? I don't want to get off the stage. I love you guys. I have so much I want to share. I love that. That's so great. Thank you. Brian had it tough in school. I'm going to tell this story anyway. Brian had it tough in school. On this one particular day, Brian was having a bad day. When he's having a bad day, he walked into his classroom. Somebody said something to Brian. The teacher told Brian to go stand out in the hallway because he responded in such a way that the teacher didn't like. So he's in the hallway and he's minding his own business. When out of the blue, another young man saw Brian standing against the wall, and he pushed Brian against the locker. Brian hit the floor and ran out of the school as quickly as he could. He ran through the football field and through the parking lot and into his house. Thank goodness Brian's family was there. Otherwise, I don't know what kind of story I'd be telling you. He ran into his father's arms and he confessed to him everything that was going on in his life. That day, they decided to leave school. Now, Brian's story is tragic. Brian's story is too common. But what I want you to understand is what I want you to understand is the other young man. See, the other young man was standing by Brian's locker the next day because he was raised better than that, and he knew what he had done was wrong. So he waited by Brian's locker, only no Brian. Tuesday, same thing. Wednesday, same thing. Thursday. By Friday, he was beside himself upset. He went to the guidance counselor. Now, the guidance counselor knew him very well, had good friends with his mom. And he said, "Miss, I've had a bad day the other day, and I saw Brian standing against the locker. I pushed him as hard as I could. And now he hasn't been back to school." Guidance counselor knew exactly what had happened. She said, "Brian left this school. Brian left this school because of you. His dad and mom came in to see me came in to see me on Monday, and he's no longer at this school." Now, this is before all the social media avenues that you're privy to. The young boy started to cry. He said, "Can I have his number so I can at least call him and say sorry?" She said, "Absolutely not. Get out of my office." Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. Lost contact with Brian. Eventually, Facebook was invented. This boy, who is now a man, decided he was going to befriend Brian. And they did. And after some time, they decided they were going to meet. The boy went to Brian's house. He knocked on his door. Brian opened the door. He took off his hat, looked him in the eye, and said, "I'm sorry." Brian's response was simple. He said, "Welcome." He came in and they spent the afternoon together, hanging out, doing their thing, catching up on each other's lives. Brian found happiness. Perhaps he went to a school like this that was inclusive and accepting of all people without bias. You're probably wondering, you know a lot about this story, man. How do you know so much about this story? The reason why I know so much about this story is because I was the young man. I saw that kid minding his own business in the hallway, and I was having a bad day, so I decided to give him a shove. I dedicate my life to eradicating this kind of behavior. I go in and out of schools all over this great continent, and the one thing that I got to live with is the fact that I turned that young boy's trajectory. I changed it. Thank goodness he found happiness. Thank goodness we're in a good place now. Otherwise, I have no idea what kind of story I'd be telling you. Look at me. You need to recognize this. This is a great school. It's a big school. It's an inclusive school. It's a beautiful school. But I understand that you're not going to be best friends with every person. But it takes no energy to walk by someone and say, "Hey," and smile. Not like a creep, but you know what I mean. It takes no energy to hold the door open for someone. It takes no energy to thank your teachers for a great lesson or to go to the custodian and say, "Great job." It takes no energy to pick up trash while you're walking into the classroom or give someone a compliment that you think deserves it. No one's going to care what the score in the intramural game is, but I tell you what, you can change someone's life by simply sitting with someone new at lunch. I was sitting on the banks of the Pacific Ocean, and I was scared. I'm going to get out of here on this one. And I was scared. My team was ready. 18 months we trained for this day, and all I wanted to do was go home. 8,321 kilometers ahead of me. I missed my wife. I missed my daughter. And I was looking for any kind of inspiration that I could find. And so I counted back from 3, and I pulled myself off this log that I was sitting on. And I walked up the stairs. Walked up the stairs from the little beach, and I was continuing to where this picture was taken, when a guy on a bike came back in front of me. And he stopped. He said, "Hey, man, where are you heading?" I said, "I'm getting ready to cross the country on my bike." He said, "Awesome. I did that in 2003. And I thought, wow, this is the inspiration that I need. I said, "Do you have any advice, sir?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Ride for tomorrow." And I know what he meant. He meant conserve energy. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Ride for tomorrow. But I decided to look at it metaphorically, that every time that I pushed the pedal stroke to the east, my team and I were doing our part to make this world that much more inclusive. So I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm feeling excited and confident. So I continue to walk to mile 0 to start this ride when a cop car comes up. And it stops in front of me. He goes, "Hey, man, where are you going?" I said, "I'm getting ready to cycle across the country." He paused for a second. He goes, "Awesome. I did that in 07. At this point, I'm like, who hasn't done this? I said, do you have any advice, sir? And he said, not so much advice, but it's what I've learned. He said, there's nothing in the world that can equate for the potential of the human spirit. Nothing in the world can equate for the potential of the human spirit. You're going to come across unbelievable examples of potential and unbelievable examples of human spirit. And you know what? 95 days after that picture was taken, this one was taken, and I was finally reunited with my beautiful daughter, Bryn, and my family. What I've learned in that journey was all kinds of things. I'm going to share them with you right now. If your why in life is big enough, your how every single time will show up. Be who you are and allow that to come out in how you live. Never allow a person who hasn't done it tell you that you can't be done. And if you wake up every morning and you ask yourself, how do I want to be remembered? Every single day, that the actions you take will reflect the question you give. You guys have been a great audience. My name is Nick Foley. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much, Nick, for that incredibly...
I'll give you this one. It works.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that incredibly inspiring speech. I'm sure each and every one of us will be going home today more inspired and educated on the importance of inclusion and acceptance.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks, folks.
A lot of the time, as teenagers and full-time students, we get so caught up in our own busy lives that we forget to just take a second and slow down and take a step back and truly see the world as the amazing place that it is, filled with all kinds of fantastic, diverse individuals.
It's so refreshing to hear stories like Nick's that can give us all some ambition and inspiration to know that every single one of us can achieve greatness through inclusion and acceptance.
And on behalf of Halifax West, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for the time that you've taken to speak to us.
Just say